here we go. Let's hit the intro. And we are back. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Rick. Thanks for having me here today.
Our pleasure. Now, Dan, tell us a little bit about what Interactive Advantage does.
Well, we're based in Atlanta, and for the last 20 plus years, we've been a custom e-learning development organization. So everything that's really technology-based learning, we're into it. We pride ourselves on being strong on the technical side of what the authoring tools have to offer. Whereas a lot of our competitors might consider their strength the instructional design, which we do certainly as well, but we know that there's often a number of technical issues that have to be resolved with the deployment of technology-based learning assets, and so we're strong with the integration into different systems, and of course we create custom content for everybody from government to higher ed to the private sector in a number of different verticals. So we touch a lot of different clients in a lot of different areas. In fact, we like to say that because of the training that we've built over the years, we're capable of performing surgery, operating a nuclear power plant, and driving a forklift in most states here in the U.S.
Yeah, that's great. You sound like us. We're kind of in the same boat. We do a lot of instructional design, but really we're more techies at heart. You know, some of us come from IT backgrounds, and we like the tech, and the authoring tools are fun. Now use Lectora as one of your authoring tools, right?
Right. In fact, we have a storied history with authoring tools, and Lectora in particular. You know, back in the 90s, mid 90s, and this was really back before Lectora became a prominent tool. You either used one tool or another. It was really either Toolbook or you used Authorware. Mm-hmm. Those were the two leaders. In fact, I think between those two products, they enjoyed more than 25% of the market share when it came to authoring tools.
Yeah.
And you know, as Toolbook began to age and eventually was taken on by SumTotal Systems, we found that Lectora was a very natural move for us. It had a lot of the same metaphors that you would find in a product like Lectora. We liked the simple HTML output. You know, we don't need a plugin necessarily unless you're integrating media that requires a plugin. Whereas on the Authorware side, and with Flash and some of the other products, there's some kind of a plugin or player involved. So we liked Lectora from the beginning. We liked the power that it offered. When it came to the action, some of the logic that you can employ. And then most of all, we like the fact that it's a tool that supports a process-driven methodology where you can create templates, you can create a process that's repeatable, and ramp up a team of people who may not be the strongest development, most experienced development people, but they can produce content that makes it look like they are in that team setting. So that's one of the things that drew us to Lectora in the first place, and has really kept us with the product for a very long time.
Well, it's funny because John Blackman, the CTO of Lectora, was actually one of the designers of OS2 back in its day, which was actually, even in today's day and age, OS2 is probably better architected than Windows, or even the Mac for that matter. It was just a really well done system back then. That was in the 90s, and unfortunately IBM in its great infinite wisdom killed it. So that was the end of OS2. But that's interesting because we did the same thing. We worked with Authorware. We did some work with Toolbook when it was actually originally Asymmetric's Toolbook, and then it, like you said, it went on to something. Then they dumped it, so now it's on its own, and I don't know if anybody owns it anymore.
Actually, SumTotal still owns that.
They still own it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it went from asymmetrics, which was really something that I guess Paul Allen founded out
Yep.
of Microsoft,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually that was taken over by Click-to-Learn, and
Right.
for about 6 short months it was called clicktolearn.com.
Yep.
Everybody was adding .com onto their name, and then it went back to Click-to-Learn and was eventually taken over by SumTotal. I guess now they're owned by Skillsoft, but they still have the Toolbook
Ah.
product, and it is still an active product out there, but mainly for people who take on their environment. I think the thing that we like about Lectora as a differentiator is the innovation that we've seen. One of the areas that we've really enjoyed, features that we've enjoyed with Lectora, is the accessibility component. We do a lot of government contract work, and of course the need there is to create content that's Section 508 compliant, and Lectora is, as far as we're concerned, the leader in the industry for that kind of content authoring, and we've been using it since, I guess, 2007 or so, with a lot of success for government agencies. And indeed, I was just working with Scott Barnett at Trivantis a few weeks ago, mid-November. We did the Inspiration Wednesday session, and on the topic of accessibility with Lectora 16 and some of the new features that are available in that product, that we can take advantage of, and that makes accessible content development easier than ever. So it's been an exciting area for us with Lectora, that we've been investing a lot of time and effort in understanding and helping organizations capitalize on that feature set.
That's good. Yeah, they really do have some great new stuff that they've added, and it just keeps getting better and better. I know there's some stuff coming in the future that's going to be pretty cool. So there's just constantly doing new stuff. And if you look at Lectora from, like you said, 2000s, was it in '07 when you started?
Well, that's when we started looking at the accessibility aspects of it. I think we were using it before that.
Okay.
And indeed, before that, we were starting to teach classes on Lectora too, which is something that we really enjoy. We've been teaching organizations how to leverage the product with some custom classes since about 2006, 2007.
That's
I think.
great. I think you got in probably the same time we did. I think we were right around 2006 with the little surfboards and the. It was fun. I remember it used to come with the little fob. It was a little surfboard fob. It was cute.
That's right. You get a surfboard
and the lunchbox.
Thumb drive, and you get it in a lunchbox.
It was different, but it was good. And when we first got into it, the same thing. I went, because we were really heavy into authorware at one point, and you could do a lot of programming with authorware. Not the most elegant sometimes, but you could do quite a bit with it.
Yeah.
And with Lectora, we went, you can do a lot with not having to really know that much, like you said, in terms of they make things that are programmatical really easy.
Yeah. Well, and, we can always extend the product with JavaScript. One of the things that we were excited about, I guess it was probably Lectora 11 or 12, where they introduced the idea of, or maybe it was even Lectora X, they introduced the idea of integrating I guess CSS3 support into the product, and of course, what that requires, what it enables, first of all, is the ability to add nice visual features to things like images and control text styling and other things in pretty easy way through the Lectora interface. But the challenge with that, and also integrating some of the new JavaScript features you associate with HTML5, like jQuery and things like that. It was interesting because we wanted to take advantage of that when Lectora made it available, but we found that not all of our clients were quite ready for that move to a modern browser set that would actually support that. And indeed, even those who were ready for the browser move, their learning management system may not have been, and I won't name any names as to which learning management systems tended to be the ones that weren't as receptive to the more modern content. But it was an interesting dilemma at the time that, and everybody continues to go through that transition where it's like, well, does your LMS, do your shows and browsers, do your machines actually support the powerful, innovative content that we can create with a tool set like this? So that's been another interesting journey for us.
You know, Dan, one time we went to, we had a client, a big pharmaceutical company, or actually biotech company, and you know, usually we ask, what browser do you have? And with them, I didn't. I don't know why I did. I figured they're cutting edge. These guys are techies. No, IE6. We show up, and everybody's on IE9 and 10 at that point. They're on 6. So
Right.
we showed up, and we had finished a course for them, go into their conference room, run it. It's all in Lectora. It ran beautifully, except none of the content was showing. I'm like, oh, God, no, no. The screens were just everywhere. Everything was totally misplaced because IE6 just didn't really handle a lot of the HTML newer content very well. And we're sitting going, my God, everything's missing. That's missing.
Yeah.
Oh, we're missing our navigation. This is not good. And then we figured out it was IE6, and we fixed it. Actually, we called support, and they gave us about 5 lines of code and fixed it. But at the moment, it was just like, uh-oh, the stomach's fluttering. What's going on here? This isn't good.
Yeah, those moments are kind of scary, and you know, when you're done with the project and you finally have that opportunity to test deployment in the environment, and you realize that nothing's operating the way it's supposed to.
Yep.
And again, with one of those LMSs that will remain nameless, we got to that point with a government agency and had some just beautiful Lectora stuff using all the CSS stuff and some jQuery, some nice accordions in there and some other things. And, you know, had them launch it up in their environment. And of course, none of that stuff was operating. And we came to learn that the SCORM player window that was being generated by the learning management system was not, just not to get too technical here, but they weren't declaring essentially the level or version of HTML that they were going to support. So Internet Explorer was assuming that it needed to revert back to a very early mode, something akin to IE6, and we lost all of that nice functionality that we hoped to gain. And of course, the answer from the learning management system company was, well, if you buy the next version, you won't have that issue anymore. So there's your incentive to upgrade your system.
But one of these days, we should have dinner together and have a glass of my Lanta, remembering all these great moments where things just don't work out. Yeah, that's always frustrating. And, you know, a lot of times, I know for a fact that Lectora gets blamed for that. And I keep saying, no, it's not their fault. It's the browsers, which are not compatible at all many times. They do a lot of stupid things in browsers. You know, there is some ray of hope. Well, IE is no longer the largest used browser out there. It's now Firefox. I think IE is second and Chrome is third, which is sort of interesting. And I've been to some shops, and they're pretty large shops that are now supporting Firefox and Chrome. And I went, whoa, that's amazing. At a corporate level, they're saying, no, we're not really doing IE anymore. We're doing Firefox, Chrome, and some are even supporting Edge, the new Edge browser, which I think, I can't prove this, but I have a feeling they license Chrome from it. I mean, they're all based on WebKit, but it sure looks like Chrome because we get Chrome error messages when we do Edge stuff. So you're just gonna, why would we get a Chrome error message on Edge unless they're using the same DLLs somewhere and it's picking up the wrong DLL, which is the Chrome DLL? I wonder sometimes.
Well, you know, with Microsoft, you never know what you're going to get, and you know, I think what they did with Edge is try to make a significant leap forward that unfortunately differentiates the browsers out there even more.
Right.
So they didn't necessarily make a leap with IE to try to make it more similar to how things are implemented in Chrome or Firefox. They said, well, those are fine, and maybe there is some licensing of some aspects of it, but they then decided to do some other things that are probably forward-looking, but everybody's interpreting HTML5 and what it does differently, or trying to support different aspects of it different ways. And when you've got something like HTML5 that's kind of run by committee internationally, it presents a challenge. Indeed, we talked about some Flash migration stuff recently, where, you know, why was Flash a good thing, and why is it not so good? Well, you know, what's the plus and minus of kind of migrating away from Flash to an HTML5? And although the reputation of Flash, the bad reputation, being helped along by Steve Jobs and some of the other key players in the industry, Facebook, for example, what we didn't realize in that process is that Flash actually was an easier environment to predict. Right, you have one plugin that can do things in a very predictable way, regardless of the browser, regardless of the machine. The only downside, or the primary downside, is it's owned and maintained by one single for-profit organization, which means you're sort of at the mercy of what that organization is going to do with that product. And I guess part of the allure of HTML5 as well, we can do this by committee, we can make decisions together, but what that's done is kind of loosen up how things are interpreted even more. So yes, as content developers, we often find ourselves the target when things are not working as expected. It's, well, what's wrong with your content that you've plugged into the system? And in reality, it's not necessarily anything wrong with any one of those things. We try, when we're integrating, to not place blame, but instead to say, well, there are reasons, certainly, that something may or may not integrate or play well with the technologies around it. Then we need to search for which of those items can be most easily modified to work around the issue, work around that incompatibility. Yep. So in this case, this conversation is, maybe the LMS, maybe the browser, and then the content. Well, and as we all know, those other two items are not as movable as we might be with the content, so we find ourselves having to adjust whether it's really our fault, so to speak, or not. So just being aware of what we can do with the content to work around some of those issues is very valuable, and it's not always easy to predict, and it's constantly changing.
It's funny when you mention Flash, and everybody says, no, we hate Flash on our notebooks or on our tablets, on our phones. We hate it, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever played Angry Birds? No, yeah, I love Angry Birds. That's Flash. No, it can't be. And it's true. Almost every game on iPhones, for example, is Flash. It's done in Flash, and they wrapper it. So it doesn't look like Flash, but they're all Flash games. And when people find out, they go, really? But I thought Flash wasn't allowed on it. No, yeah, it's not allowed. No, not at all. But it's there.
Yeah. Well, the other place you see it very prevalent is in the collaborative software that we often use, if you're using GoToMeeting or one of those types of software, which we love and use all the time. You'll notice that more and more you're seeing people join with the word web next to their name, which means they're going through a browser using HTML modules to participate in that session. But as soon as you ask them to present their screen or some of the other more advanced features, it's kicking into gear essentially an arm of Flash that's I guess it's called like the Adobe Media something or other. Yep. And it is that similar technology that has powered all this stuff for so many years, and there in some cases just aren't readily available high-performing resources to replace it. So it is kind of funny how Flash is, you ask anybody, oh, Flash is dead. Well, it can't die too fast because a lot of people are still relying on it for these technologies, even if they're not aware. And certainly we see it in K-12 materials and a lot of the higher ed. They very much have invested, in the creation of, online curriculum, online content with a lot of staying power, a long shelf life, and a lot of it's Flash. Yeah. And they sell a lot of it, and it sells well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I like Flash. I mean, it was okay in its time. We don't really develop in it anymore that much. Though we use some tools that still use it. I notice if you use tools like GoAnimate or anything else, they still, well, I think they do HTML5 plus. They used to do Flash. I'm not sure if they're still pushing it as much, but it's interesting because you're right. It's kind of ubiquitous and it's still out there. It's just that it's hidden away a little more than it used to be, so people don't realize it's Flash, and you don't really see the logo anymore when it's come up with the Flash player. You just don't really see that nowadays.
Yeah.
And that was a big...
Adobe doesn't even call the authoring tool Flash anymore. They call it Animate or something different.
Yeah, so it's Edge. Now they call it Edge. It's Edge. Well, they called it Edge Animate for a while. Then they got rid of that. Yeah. Now they have, I think, Edge, and they have some other thing, but it's really basically Flash and HTML5. They also do the HTML5 now, which is pretty nice. But yeah, and Lectora I think uses some HTML5 and some HTML4 probably, and it works well. I mean, I like what they're doing, and we have one project recently where we had to simulate a website, meaning you're scrolling down a long page. It's actually for a big search engine application, and you can't do that in Captivate. You can't do that in Storyline, where you can have an object larger than your screen. I mean, really a lot larger than your screen. Maybe with Storyline you can. Um, but then use your mouse wheel to scroll it.
Right.
Lectora can. I think the only one right now that I found that can, and so that makes it a very realistic simulation versus you have to put little fake anchor points or buttons to jump to places, which isn't what they'll see in the real application. So once again, Lectora comes out ahead on something simple because they've got the controls on the web. It just makes sense. They've always been ahead of everybody when it came to web content.
Well, and there's another area to get back to the accessibility features. You look at the way Lectora is created, and we compared this when we first started with Lectora and contrasted it with Toolbook, for example, where Toolbook used the sort of one HTML document concept, and they would continue to slide in objects in divs or however they were doing that. But with Lectora, we were very impressed at the cleanliness of each individual HTML file that was created for each page that we would design in the tool, and it is clean. It is easy to get in there and look at that HTML. But from an accessibility standpoint, it also is really nicely exposed and organized for assistive technologies like the JAWS screen reader, for example. So it has no problem recognizing that a new page is launched, and that it can read down all those contents, and the control over layer order, or what becomes tab order, in Lectora is very important. A lot of that's missing in the other products that compete with it. The ability to declare whether something is or isn't included in that tab order. The ability to provide alternatives, alternative equivalents for that content, so that someone with an assistive device or who prefers to consume the content differently has options. And I think what's been important to us is, if we are creating a course that has to be Section 508 compliant, we don't want to water it down. We don't want to turn it into some of what you may see out there online on websites, for example, that you can tell that they've made a lot of effort to create a website that's accessible, but it looks horrible to a sighted person. We feel like we should be able to create some pretty sexy content that's interactive, that's media rich, and to still make that accessible for all the users out there, whether it's someone who has a visual impairment or a hearing impairment, or whether they just simply want to operate their computer by using just a keyboard instead of a mouse. And again, we consider Lectora our go-to product for that. And we've contrasted it. We've evaluated these other products like Storyline and Captivate and some of the others, and there just simply isn't the level of control that we enjoy with Lectora. And I don't mean to sound like a sales spiel here. I think people recognize that as its strength, but it's the specifics of why that happens that's interesting to us, and the ability to get in there and control that on a page-by-page basis. And now with some of the new features, namely the one where you can control navigation to have it read last. That's the property. You can group certain navigation buttons together so that someone using a screen reader will hear, let's say, the title and other, things that are at the title or AU level. They'll hear some of that information. Then they'll hear the page content being read. And then after that, they can hear some of those navigation buttons being read. Yet we still can keep them at the AU level. So again, just tons of control over what we want to do and how we want to present the content, even when those assistive devices are in play.
Yeah, that's really good, because most of the other tools don't support any of the JAWS or other readers like Lectora, if at all. They tend to have their own little captioning that goes at the bottom, but you can't really read it too well, which is really funny. I always laugh when I think of, and I suffer from a little bit of a low vision disease. I've got retinitis pigmentosa, so with me, it's contrast. If something doesn't have a lot of contrast, it's hard for me to make out, especially with text. Um, and of course, 80% of the websites are horribly designed right now, where there's no contrast at all. It's just flat, no contrast, and you just go, somebody's got to read this. And yeah, people can read it, but they're straining more often than not without realizing it. And
Right.
and I kind of laugh because when you look at how sites are designed, they're not functional. It's form before function, and it's just a shame because we're losing productivity because people are having a lot. Anybody over 40 pretty much is going, huh? Well, I can't read that too well.
Well, I was just
One,
going to say, you get a lot of stuff that's developed by a 22-year-old, and he loves those small fonts
right.
and the artistic aspect of how that site looks.
Yep.
And
But nobody can read
some
it.
of the designers on our staff will argue with me on occasion that I've got an old man sensibility as to how I want something to look. But
Yeah.
you do have to consider all the users out there. You have to consider the demographic of your learner audience, and in a lot of cases, there are a lot of people out there like you and me who need to be able to see this content more easily.
Yeah.
And there are ways we can do that. For example, the things that are happening now with Lectora and the responsive design concepts.
Yep.
So if we are switching to a different device, that content's going to be optimized for that view, and I don't have to squint at something that's just been scaled down to fit on my iPad,
Right.
for example. So we're excited about that kind of technology and that happening in Lectora, and they're leading that area as well.
Yeah, I think they were patenting their the way they're doing the responsive because it is very different. It kind of folds on itself, it opens, and it's just really cleverly done. What were we saying? We're going to think outside the matrix instead of outside the box now. Forget the box. Let's go into the matrix. It's pretty neat, some of the things that they're coming up with. And yeah, John never ceases to amaze me. I know John pretty well, and he's always got something new coming up. You just go, these guys are cool. Did you go to the Lectora user conference this year?
I didn't make it to the user conference this year, no, but I'm looking at the one coming up this coming year, and in fact, I've been looking at whether I can present some sessions, and
That'd be good.
so I'm excited about signing myself up there. I'm definitely going to be there this year.
Well, I'll
So,
give you a call. I'll give you a call. I'm going to be down in Atlanta, probably February or March. We're going to be visiting one of our clients down there in Alpharetta, and I'll give you a call when we're out there. Maybe we can get together.
Well, bring your golf clubs, because if it happens to be a warm day, we can get out there. There's a golf course around every single corner here in this
Wow.
part of Georgia.
Nice. Yeah,
So
that sounds good.
we'll see.
Though I'm really not very good at golf. It's been a long time since I played golf. I'll carry your bags. That might be
That's
safer. So tell me, Dan, what are some of your views of what's happening with the e-learning world and where it's going, and things that maybe are good and things that aren't so good?
You know what I like that I've seen lately, and this is again something where Trivantage got out in front of this, but one of the banes of our existence in the e-learning world has been, how do you get reviews coming back from your customers in a more organized way, right? Because you're going to get emails, they're going to call you on the phone. I even have one customer who, to this day, will press print screen as she goes through the course that we've developed. She'll put every printed screen in a Word document, and then she'll print that Word document out, mark it up in red pen, and fax me. She'll actually send me the pages faxed.
Oh gosh, I think I know her actually.
So we've been using the Review Link product for years now with great success, and they've recently updated that, and it looks really good. We like the way it's operating and its flexibility, so that we can review different content in as well from different sources. So I think that's what I'm excited about, seeing the improvements there. Because what it does is it makes our lives as developers a whole heck of a lot easier. We can keep things in a central place. Our workflow is more optimized and organized, and we like that. In fact, one of the things that we've been looking at for a long time, that I'm looking at again with a fresh look now, is in Lectora Online. You have the media storage area, what I call their media repository. And I think that's a really under-recognized, undervalued piece of that product, that if you're, especially with image assets the way they are now, if you go to, iStock Photo or one of these places, you're paying an arm and a leg for images.
Yeah.
And then, ideally, at least the way we work it is we want our customers to own those images. So they buy them, we plug them into the courses, but now we may do 2, 3, 4 dozen courses for that customer over the course of a year. We don't want to have to go back to the well every time we need an image, so we find the ability to store them there and use that as a repository where we can tag those images for the customer. So we know, okay, that's an image that was purchased by that customer and that we can freely reuse. And then within that, provide tags for all the other criteria that we want across that media, whether it's images, audio files, video clips, or whatever it is, and have that ready and organized online with some nice thumbnails. We can look at it, search for it. I think that's an undervalued aspect of the product, and one that we're taking another fresh look at. That, again, I think it's a huge time saver. It's a huge benefit to a developer who wants to optimize their process, take good care of their customer, and add some more value.
That's great. We're just now getting into the online, and I'm enjoying it. I like it a lot, actually. Now, that media library, when you create it, is that available to different users who also are on your...
Yeah,
it is.
You can actually create multiple users that have access to that account. And again, it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but that's what I'm seeing. And I need to dig back into it and get a feel for it. I also am looking at the storage capacity of it, because I think you can buy additional storage for it. And of course, storage is generally becoming less and less expensive. Right. So I think what we're going to see there is that it becomes a powerful, reliable aspect of the tool that most people may not even be aware is there, but just offers such an optimized workflow. It's really unbelievable.
That's great. Well, Dan, we're about at the end of our time. What's a good way for people to get a hold of you?
Well, you can come to our website at interactiveadvantage.com. While you're there, take a look for our new accessibility packs for Lectora. I'll put a menu link at the very top so you guys can find it easy. But it's an idea that we put forward where it's, Lectora is great for accessibility. Let's make a packet of templates and documents and testing checklists to make it easy for people to really take full advantage of the product and its accessibility features right away. So take a look for that while you're there. That's great.
That's great. And by the way, as I was looking at your website as it was popping up, and I can read it. This is good. Because you get a pass. Right away, you get 100% on that one. So
good deal. Well, you can always zoom in more if you need to, right?
That's true. That's true. Oh, but no, sometimes the color combinations is so bad. You get like light gray on white. It's like, oh, no. Those are tough. Or light blue on red or something. It's like, what are people doing? Just basic color combinations and stuff. But... well, Dan, a pleasure. We'll definitely have to have you back on and get into more stuff. It sounds like there's a lot of stuff you know. I almost went to that. I did sign up for your 5-way compliance thing at that Inspiration Wednesday, and I got called into meetings and I couldn't make it. I went, darn, I missed that one. I wanted to see what you were talking about. So now I know it's you. I'm going to go back and see if I can find the recording of that one.
Well, I'm glad to talk to you about it anytime. It's an area of interest for me, as you can tell, and we got an ebook coming out on it as well here early in 2017. So I'll make sure you get a copy of my ebook on accessibility and Lectora.
That sounds great. Appreciate it. That'll be great. Well, Dan, again, a pleasure having you on. And for all you people watching, give Dan a call. Go to his website, and we'll see you next week. We've got Jennifer Valley on from Trivantis next week. Well, have a good one, everyone. Thanks again, Dan, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.